Is Westchase, Florida on your radar for a potential new place to buy a home or to move to in Florida? Well, it probably should be, but there are a whole bunch of things that you should know before you make a huge decision like that. So, as a real estate expert for the last 20 years selling homes in that area, I'm going to break down for you everything that you need to know about living in Westchase, Florida before you make that decision. Because the reality is you could invest a whole bunch of money in a property and make a very expensive mistake. Now, I'm not saying that living in Westchase would be a mistake. You would probably love it. But regardless, there are certain things that I think are important to people that other people have told me they wish they knew before they moved there. So I'm going to put them into a neat little package for you, wrap it in a bow, and give you all of the information right now. So grab your pen, grab your notebook, grab your popcorn. Let's dive right into the content. Okay, guys, so let's dig in. Now, first of all, I want to start by saying that Westchase in general is a fantastic place to live. Just some backstory. It's the place that I actually wanted to move to when I moved here 20 years ago from England. It had this really cool young vibe, and it had this walkable little downtown area, and it just really stood out from a lot of the other suburbs around. And unfortunately at that time in 2005, the real estate market was so hot, I just couldn't afford to buy a place there. And I've had FOMO ever since. Every time I go down there, I'm always thinking to myself, man, what if, or I wish I could still be here. And if I had a magic wand of all the places I could be in the Tampa Bay area, Westchase would probably be the #1 place. And I'm sure that's why it's just been voted the #1 suburb in the whole state of Florida to live by Niche. So it certainly has some aspects that go very much in its favor when people are making that decision. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about with Westchase is the location. It's one of the closest suburbs to the north side of Tampa. It's situated just off of the 589 Suncoast Veterans Toll Road, and it's about 15 minutes from Tampa Airport. So location-wise, it's a dream. But aside from that, it's also a great jumping off point for places over to the west as well. So it's one of the closer suburbs to the Gulf, where you can go to Tarpon Springs, Dunedin, Safety Harbor, and use it as a jumping off point to some of those awesome locations. It's certainly much closer than somewhere like Wesley Chapel, which is going to be an hour and 15 minutes maybe away from some of those locations. And because it's only 15 minutes away from the Tampa Airport, it means it's only about 25 minutes away from downtown Tampa. So if you're commuting there for work, you're going to find that a breeze also, although traffic on Kennedy Boulevard around those times of the day can get pretty backed up. So now that I've told you about the location, let's talk a little bit about the vibe of Westchase. And this is what really attracted me to it 20 years ago. It definitely has a young suburban vibe, although it's also kind of a small community feel to it as well, because it has that focal downtown area. A lot of people gather in those spaces, and you get to know your neighbors pretty quickly. And all in all, it's pretty walkable considering we're in Florida. So I used to live in Spring Hill, and it's pretty much strip mall after strip mall. There's no real focal point where you can park up and walk around. Now I live in downtown Brooksville, which is a historical city, and it has more of that, where it has the courthouse and the streets around it where you can skip from store to store or restaurant to restaurant, and it has a really great walkable feel. Westchase is one of those places that's definitely very much walkable and has two kind of walkable downtown areas with restaurants and stores and professional services. And it sets it apart from most other areas. Now, it was established in the 1990s, and at that time it was absolutely a groundbreaking community. And now, of course, as time has gone on, we've got these lagoon communities now and hundreds of acres of walking trails and nature reserves. But at the time it was groundbreaking, and I have to say it stood the test of time really, really well. Every time I go back there, it still looks vibrant, it still feels kind of new, and it's exciting. So I know it's hard to put that into a video in words, but just go check it out. I think you'll understand what I mean by it. Now, the nightlife in Westchase is pretty good also. Certainly, again, not on par with something like Tampa, where you have all of the clubs and all of the rooftop bars and stuff like that. But back in the day, when I used to drink a lot more and hang out a little bit later, we used to quite constantly come down to Westchase and crash at my buddy's house and hang out there. And it's only got more vibrant over the years. There's a lot of bar options that stay open late, live music, karaoke, and other cool stuff going on around there. And if you do want to get into the club scene or something a little bit more lively, like I said, you're only about 9-10 miles away from Tampa. So getting down there is going to be a breeze, again, compared to somewhere like Trinity, Odessa, Land O'Lakes, Lutz, or one of those areas. So some of the more popular things to do in Westchase might be the golf course there, or the tennis courts, community pool. But it does have those stores and restaurants and bars down there, so people love hanging out there as well. There are some great stores nearby. So you have the Citrus Park Mall, you have the Elevate Fun Center with go-karting, putt-putt, ropes course, and some other cool stuff as well. Or simply enjoying the stuff in the neighboring areas such such as Dunedin, Safety Harbor, or Tampa, or St. Pete. Okay guys, if you're getting value from this video, please do a couple of things. Please like the video. Please comment down below, let me know what your favorite thing about Westchase is, and then hit the notifications bell and subscribe to the channel. That way, any new videos we release, not only about Westchase, but all of the north suburbs of Tampa, like Wesley Chapel, Trinity, Land O'Lakes, Odessa, Spring Hill, and Brooksville, you'll be the first to know about them. And of course, if you have any questions or you're thinking about making the move, be sure to reach out to us at the contact information below. You can call, text, email us, or set up a Zoom consult. We would love to hear from you. All right, let's get back into the video. Now, the next thing you're going to want to consider is the population density of Westchase. And if you're concerned about that, it's important to know that it is a pretty major suburb north of Tampa. The current population is about 24,000 people. And if you're thinking getting that many people into that size of an area might cause some traffic issues, then to a large degree, you would be right. People do use Limebore and Racetrack Road as cut-throughs to get to other areas. So it's not just the traffic that you have in Westchase that's using those roads. People are skirting all over the north side of Tampa, cutting through these areas, and it just adds to the traffic. I was down there a couple of weeks ago to shoot a video and trying to get into the little Main Street downtown area there, and it took me 3 sets of lights to get through it. Now, admittedly, it was a little bit later in the day when schools were turning out and maybe people were starting to get out of work, but just bear in mind that there is some traffic down in Westchase at those key peak times. However, all things considered, it's way better than Tampa is, and it's probably better on balance than somewhere like Wesley Chapel, which is kind of renowned for its traffic issues. Now, mass transit in Westchase is going to be pretty thin on the ground, so you're not going to want to rely on that very much. But like I said, Westchase is kind of walkable as well. So as long as you can get to where the action is, you can certainly walk around the 2 little downtown areas, restaurants, bars, and stores. There's a little town square in there as well. So you probably don't need an over-reliance on mass transit anyway. However, it certainly is thin on the ground. Like I said, you wouldn't want to be relying on it to get too many places down there. Now, let's assume you're on board with the culture, the population, and the traffic. The next thing you might want to consider is the weather. Now, as you know, in Florida, we have a subtropical climate. So think kind of hot, humid summers and then mild, beautiful winters. But of course, we have the added thing of hurricanes thrown in there as well. Now, in July and August, we're going to see highs of about 89, 90 degrees and then lows of 77. But it's worth noting that the humidity is at 100% during those months, and they have about 21 days a month on average of rainfall. So it's kind of like a Florida myth where it gets so hot during the day that temperature builds up and up and up and the pressure builds up, and then towards 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe a little later, the thunderstorms roll in, the heavens open, and that's where we get that heavy rain. And then while we're talking about that kind of weather, I don't think there's a single Floridian who doesn't get put on heightened alert around hurricane season, especially with what happened at the end of 2024 with Helene and Milton, where, in case you didn't see it in the news, there was devastation caused all up the west coast of Florida, from Sarasota up through Tampa Bay, through Pasco and Hernando counties. Now, while Westchase is inland and did avoid the worst of this, if there was ever to be a direct hit on the Tampa Bay area or just north, the devastation would be pretty bad there. So there's kind of consistently close calls in the Tampa Bay area. It's definitely a part of everyday life in the summer months towards the September, October time frame. So just be aware that that may be a factor of living for you if you move to Westchase, Florida. However, let's talk about something that maybe goes a little bit more under the radar, although not by the snowbirds, they know all about this, is the beautiful mild winters. And this is really the perfect time of year in Florida. So while a lot of the country is shoveling snow in January, think about a high of 70 and a low of 53. That's what we're talking about in Westchase, and it's the type of weather I absolutely love, especially coming from England where it's pretty mild like that most of the year round. And yeah, you may have 1 or 2 frost snaps in there where you need to cover up your plants in your yard, but for the most part, it's pretty much pants and maybe long sleeve weather. You can almost totally ditch the winter coats, although there will be some occasions where you will want them still. And of course, as brutal as the summers are, I would rather be dealing with that than dealing with snow. So definitely pick your poison, but that's a breakdown of the weather in Westchase, Florida. Now, another thing you'll want to consider if you're moving to Westchase is of course going to be the real estate. And I've got you taken care of there. I've been selling homes in Westchase for the last 20 years. Now, one of the great things about Westchase is it has such a wide variety of homes. So think condos, villas, townhomes, single family homes. There's homes on the waterfront. There's homes on water, homes on golf courses. There's gated enclaves and non-gated enclaves. And there's even mega mansions in there as well. So it spans a wide variety of price points and a huge variety variety of homes. And some of the styles in there are that kind of classic Southern as well, with the porches, which I absolutely adore. So it has different styles of homes from village to village in there also. Now, with all of these types of homes and the real estate in there, you're looking at an average price on Zillow of $558,000, which is not all that bad considering it's the most popular suburb and the best suburb in the whole of Florida. However, you have to take into account a couple of things. First of all is that is the highest of any of the suburbs that I did any research for. And then the second part of that is that includes the condos, villas, and townhomes. When you take those out, the average single family price is much closer to $700,000. So without a doubt, your money doesn't go quite as far in somewhere like Westchase, but of course you have all of the other trappings which make it such a great place to live. So you wouldn't expect it to be the cheapest suburb out there. And then the other thing to note about it is that there's no new construction there. So you're not going to get those wild incentives that new builders are offering in other places like Wesley Chapel and Lutz and Land O'Lakes, and that the homes were predominantly built in the mid-90s. So they are older properties as well. And some of them are starting to feel a little bit that way. So be sure to reach out to us if you want to snag a free list of homes that match your area and price point. We'd be delighted to send those to you and tell you more about the properties there. Hey guys, Ross Hardy from the Hardy team at Remax Marketing Specialist. And as you probably know, I'm a local real estate expert selling homes in the Tampa Bay area for the last 20 years now. We help over 200 families a year make the transition, and we are real estate experts. We're here to answer any questions that you might have, whether you're 9 days or 99 days away from making the move. There's never a dumb question and there's never a bad time to do your research. So be sure to reach out to us at the contact information below. You can call, text, email, set up a Zoom call. We just love hearing from folks like you from the YouTube channel. You're our favorite people to work with. And be sure to like the video. Please leave a comment down below. I answer all of those myself. And let us know if you want to snag a free list of homes in Westchase for sale. All right, let's get back to the video. Now, in addition to the price of the real estate, it's also important to consider the general cost of living in Westchase. And it has to be said, it is a little bit on the higher side. So it's actually 4% above the national average and 1% above the state average cost of living there. Now, while you might not think that's too bad for all that you get living in the #1 suburb, I do want to mention that it's likely to get a little bit worse when they reevaluate these numbers on an annual basis, because I did just read a report that said Tampa Bay has seen the largest increase in general grocery costs anywhere in the mainland US. So that is going to get a little bit higher for cost of living there. Now, as far as property taxes go, they're certainly going to be higher than some of the other suburbs that are in Pasco County or Hernando County. And another thing to consider is that homeowners insurance costs are rising in Florida as well. However, one benefit to consider is that because it's a much older community built in the 1990s, the CDD fees and the HOA fees are considerably lower than somewhere again like Wesley Chapel. So what's bad on the one hand is good on the other hand. Weigh them all out against each other. And of course, as I always remind people, it's also worth considering that Florida has no state income tax, so that's a huge break and a huge benefit as well. Now, also, before you move to the area, you're going to want to know what the job market is like, right? So I will tell you that Westchase has one of the best prospects of any of the suburbs in Tampa. One, because it's pretty vibrant where it is and there's pretty good professional services around there, but also because it's so close to Tampa, it makes commuting down there a breeze. Now, what I always like to do in this instance is use ZipRecruiter, which is a great resource, to compare the salaries of certain positions. So the average salary in Westchase is about $60,000. And if you're an RN, that's going to be an average of $83,000. If you're a teacher, it's going to be $53,000. And those are, again, some of the higher numbers that I've seen in studying all of the suburbs. So like I said, use ZipRecruiter, use Indeed to see what type of positions are available, and use ZipRecruiter to compare what your job would pay in Westchase compared to where you're at now. Now, if you have kids, one of the biggest considerations you're going to have is going to be the schools. And this is a really, really interesting one. So let me break it down like this. First of all, I would say that Westchase has fantastic schools. It's what it's always been built upon, and the reputation for the schools in the area, both public and private, are fantastic. Now, you can use niche, you can use great schools to go on and look up the data yourself. I won't go too much into it in the video here. But for example, Westchase Elementary is ranked in the top 100 elementary schools in the whole state of Florida. Now, the one caveat I will add to that is that it's arguable that a lot of the suburbs have kind of caught up or overtaken Westchase as far as the schools go. So again, I'm thinking of Lutz, Land O'Lakes, Wesley Chapels, where the schools have just gone from strength to strength to strength, and a lot of people are choosing to move to those suburbs specifically for the schools, whereas maybe 10 years ago they would have been moving to Westchase for the schools. Now, like I said, the schools in Westchase are no slouch. It's just that maybe some of the other suburbs have overtaken them, and those suburbs are now less expensive to live in than Westchase. And it's kind of splitting hairs a little bit, but be sure to do your research research online and find out what's best for you. And the final thing I want to talk about with Westchase is kind of the food scene down there as well. So like I said, there are those two little downtown areas where they have a pretty good selection of local restaurants, which is really, really cool because you're not likely to run out of options or go to the same place over and over again. There is a pretty good variety of places there. And then even just outside of Westchase, a little bit further down Lime Bar, or if you're going up towards Citrus Park Mall, you're going to have all of the usual suspects there, as well as some local mom and pop places. And again, if you want to go into the emerging food scene in Tampa with its Michelin restaurants, it's only a 15-20 minute drive down there. So the food scene's really evolved there. It's really a kind of cool little place. And then they have Sprouts, they have Costco right on the doorstep for you to do your own shopping. So I love both of those places. And again, that's why when I look at the balance of things and where would I be if I had my magic wand to wave around, I really think Westchase would still probably be the #1 place for me. It maybe doesn't have quite as many things to do in Westchase as somewhere like Wesley Chapel does now with the lagoons and Popstroke and Main Event and some of those other cool things, but it is just a little bit closer to Tampa and St. Pete with the art scene and culture and restaurant scene that it has down there. And like I said, no matter how many times I go and visit these other suburbs and I think, man, this is really cool. I'm so excited at how this has grown over the last 15 or 20 years. Man, I could maybe see myself here one day. Every time I go back to Westchase, it just wins my heart back over and over and over again. So that's my input. It would still be my #1 place to live in all of Tampa Bay, but it doesn't mean because I like it, you have to. Be sure to do your research, reach out to us. We'd love to show you around town and some of the other suburbs there. All right, guys, so that's gonna do it for everything you need to know about Westchase, Florida before you make the move. I hope you found that useful and I hope you found it pretty comprehensive. Let me know if you think there's anything that I missed because I'm always updating these videos and I'll be sure to include it next time. Be sure to check out the rest of the channel for pros and cons, cost of living, everything you need to know about all of the northern suburbs from Tampa. So Land O'Lakes, Wesley Chapel, Lutz, Trinity, Odessa, Spring Hill, Brooksville, Carrollwood, and Westchase. And until next time, we hope to hear from you so we can show you around town. I'm Ross Hardy from the Hardy team. It's time to love where you live.